What's going on, everybody? I'm Primalliquid, and it's been a while now since we've had any Final Fantasy XVI news. However, that's actually changed. So, let's talk about it, shall we? Now, straight off the bat, let's just officially say that Final Fantasy XVI series producer and director Naoki Yoshida has recently done an interview with Uniqlo in honor of them releasing the new Final Fantasy t-shirt designs. If you don't know, Uniqlo is a clothing brand in Japan. They're doing a new shirt design based on each of the mainline Final Fantasy designs. So there's going to be a shirt for Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, and so on and so forth. Naoki Yoshida actually did an interview with them for the end of their free magazine in Japan, and the results of that interview are now translated, so anybody can read them if you want to. However, there was actually some news regarding Final Fantasy 16 in there, and that is that Final Fantasy 16 is near the end of development. And this is actually good news for a couple of different reasons. So obviously, with it being near the end of development, it means, you know, we'll get the game that much sooner. But if you remember, back in December, he also made a statement about how the game was officially half a year behind schedule because of, you know, COVID restrictions, the working from home because of the pandemic, and just having a whole bunch of trouble getting assets from companies and things like that because of the COVID restrictions and also the working from home. So a whole bunch of things combined delayed the game by up to 6 months. And Naoki Yoshida said that there would be more news coming in spring 2022. While obviously it is spring now, is this the news that he was on about? No. I sincerely doubt this was the announcement he was on about, because this was just a normal interview. It wasn't like an official announcement in any form of capacity or anything like that. However, let's just go ahead and actually look at the article, shall we? And then we can further talk on that about what is actually going on. So this article does come courtesy of the VGC. However, if you don't trust these or you want a different news source, pick your poison. There's basically everywhere, you know, making articles about this now. If your particular firm, you know, hasn't actually made an article, give it a couple hours, because this was only published within the last couple of hours. So some places are probably still in the middle of actually writing their articles. But I will try and add a few more sources in the description as well if you actually want to take a look and read up yourself. So, straight off the bat, this did originally come from Twitter. That's where it originally started, where screenshots of the magazine with the interview were posted, which was, again, you know, like I said, about the Uniqlo clothing line. But Yoshida did comment on the 16th game in the series. So, with the article now translated by VGC, whoops, let's just get rid of that. Let's go and actually have a look at what the article says, shall we? Development of the latest title, Final Fantasy XVI, is in its final stages, Yoshida said. Final Fantasy XVI aims to integrate the story and the gaming experience into a single-player game, unlike online, which portrays multiple players simultaneously, aka a reference to Final Fantasy XIV, which Naoki Yoshida is also the producer and director of. Final Fantasy XVI focuses on the individual. This makes the story more immersive. It's a very dense story. As an adult, I learned about society and said to myself, reality is not as easy as a video game. I hope that those who have left Final Fantasy will remember how exciting their passion for video games was back then. Now, short interview, obviously, you know, but the main takeaway is development of the latest title is in its final stages. A little bit on, it does also talk about what they're actually working on now, but we'll get to that momentarily. So, obviously, back in October, they said they were putting the finishing touches on the game. But then in December, they did announce that it was behind schedule because of, you know, all the assets, you know, not being delivered on time and things like that. And yes, you can go from basically putting finishing touches on to having a massive delay, because if you're missing assets, then you can't do anything. You know, you're missing character models, you're missing area models, and all things like that. So that can add a massive delay on. So that's why within, you know, just a couple of months, you can go from being on track to being 6 months behind. Basically, it happens in game development. So, obviously, right here we have the information about how Yoshida mentioned that there was going to be another announcement in spring 2022. Now, I don't actually know of any game events, because obviously spring does end at the end of May. Now, I don't know about any events coming up within the next month, so I assume this is actually going to be a Square exclusive announcement, you know, Twitter, YouTube, things like that, basically. So I do think that Square will essentially have their own little event for this announcement and things like that, because again, it does say the next big reveal. Well, that was what was said back in December, so that was Yoshi's words. The next big reveal would be in spring 2022. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, when it comes to the announcement in spring, because it literally says like next big reveal, I believe this is where we're actually going to get a release date, especially if they are putting the finishing touches on. Because as the article states, you might have seen, I know I didn't read it, but basically they're just putting the finishing touches on graphic quality, refining combat, side quests, you know, just fleshing out the battles and putting the finishing touches on the cutscenes. So not a whole lot. Basically, essentially, it's like 90% optimization, and then, you know, you've got the finishing touches on quests. So the big reveal announcement will honestly very, very likely actually be a release date. Now, along with the release date, we're probably going to get a new trailer, because that is standard. You know, it's always a trailer with the release date at the end of it and things like that. But what else can we actually expect from Final Fantasy XVI this year? If they're going to announce a release date in spring, are we going to get a release date in, like, 2022? Probably not. I mean, it's possible, but probably not. And the main reason for that is down to the tax years. So, obviously, if you don't know, tax year goes April to April, so the quarterly returns and things like that. One thing that Square absolutely love to do, which, you know, is basically the same as literally any company out there, you always like to pad your first quarter tax, basically, like your first quarterly report. You like to pad it. So you try and get your big releases into that. Unless, like, things go absolutely tits up and you need, you know, a nice boost in your Q3 or your Q4. Now, what is probably going to happen is, realistically, we're probably not going to see the game before, you know, next year, probably around April time for the Q1, or we might see it at the very end of this year, start of next year, so, you know, like January, February time, just for them to pad out their Q4 for the end of the tax year. It's a little debatable on which it's going to be. My personal take is probably it's going to be, you know, in the Q1 range, so pretty much after April. But hey, I hope I'm proven wrong. However, what else is there actually to talk about? Well, there is a few things. Firstly, we know there's going to be the announcement in spring. Yoshi P's already come out and just straight up said that. And if there is going to be an you know, release date announcement, what about the other events this year? So obviously there is no E3 this year. If you don't know, E3 2022 has been completely cancelled. Like in 2021, because of COVID and restrictions, they did do it as an online only. However, in 2022, they've already said it is completely cancelled. There is no E3 this year, not even digitally like last year. So straight off the bat, E3 is out of the question for any more news related to 16. But there are two other events this year. And when I say two other events, I mean two big events. So there is Gamescom, which happens in Germany in August. That is quite a large event, and that does get some good announcements at it. However, I don't necessarily think there's actually going to be, you know, much there in terms of FF16. The big one, however, is probably going to be TGS, which happens in September. And if you don't know, TGS stands for Tokyo Game Show. This is where Square actually really love to show off their stuff. Why? Well, the Japanese prefer Japanese events, I guess. It is what it is. Like, a lot of Japanese companies prefer doing all their big announcements at TGS. And Square is no stranger to big show-offs at TGS either. Now, with the big announcement coming in spring, obviously spring is not September, so what would they show at TGS? Right, so knowing how Yoshi operates with FF14, the way it's probably going to happen, and just remember this is my opinion right now, like this could entirely change. All I'm speaking from now is just experience from playing FF14 for the last 10 years. So what will typically happen is, for the spring announcement, we'll probably get a small trailer, you know, a small trailer with a release date. And then in TGS, there will probably be an extended trailer, so either the same trailer but with a lot more, you know, action, a lot more detail added, just more spread out. You know, we'll get more information in that trailer. Think of it as like the spring trailer could be a trailer of a trailer, and then the full trailer will be TGS, essentially. That's the way they do it with FF14 anyway, with all their expansions and things like that. We'll get a sneak peek trailer, and then just before the expansion launches, we'll get the full trailer, basically. Probably going to be the same case here. But if it is going to release, you know, late this year, early next year, again, I'm going to assume sometime in Q1 next year, there might even actually be a playable demo at TGS. Like, the chances are very low. Let me just preface this, the chances are very low of there being a playable demo at TGS, but it is possible. If there is no playable demo, however, I do 100% believe there will be a gameplay trailer. Obviously, all the trailers we've seen so far is 99% cutscenes, and the other, like, 1% is, like, kind of battle gameplay. You know, we see a couple of attacks going off and things like that. However, with TGS, we are probably going to get a much more in-depth look at the battle system, exploration, and probably more information on the characters and things like that. But the good news here, though, is it is coming. It is coming. We are getting the information within a month, according to Yoshi. And obviously, with it being near to completion now, it means we aren't going to have to wait all that long. This is no, look, this is no Nomura with FF7R, okay? Yoshi P gets shit done. So we're not going to be waiting another 10 years for this game. But yeah, this is where we can really start getting excited now. The release date will be coming soon. The game is nearly done. We just have to hold on. And hopefully it won't be utterly trash like the last few games. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? And of course, everybody, if you have your opinions, then let me know down in the comments. I love talking about all this stuff with you guys. I absolutely love the conversations when it comes to game announcements and things like that. We can, you know, we can have some good conversations regarding this. So let's start one. And of course, if you enjoyed the video or you're excited for the game, hit that like button because it really helps out the channel. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more content. As always, though, everybody, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.